federal agencies. But, I really wanted to take this moment, and Barbara and I both wanted to take this moment to say, because both Barbara and I live in Maryland. I'm in Anne Arundel. She's in Prince George's
That's
County.
right.
And want to say thank you because, it's one thing to have local senators, U.S. federal senators that are in place. It's another to have them fighting for you. And, I find it so disheartening to have our 4 U.S. senators stand up and say, this airport directly affects our constituents. This is what is dangerous for these constituents, and to have the other 96 not go along with the home 4 and what's protecting their community. So I really applaud you all for standing up and fighting for the state of Maryland, fighting for the state of Virginia. It's very, very much appreciated. We know that you have a break on your time, but didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to leave with our listeners, and know that you always have a home here at Igniting Change for whenever you need to reach out to the folks.
Well, thank you, and thank both of you at United for Change for telling these important stories and keeping people posted on what's happening. I would just close with this, that what we witnessed the other day in terms of President Trump's comments at the White House after the terrible collision has unfortunately become sort of emblematic of its approach to government. Just yesterday, I was down outside the headquarters of the Agency for International Development that does very important work on behalf of the American people around the world. And I was there because they had sent in Elon Musk and this team to essentially take over the building. They told all these federal employees not to come into work yesterday. And this is something happening in other parts of the government. So I went over there with some of my colleagues. We protested the action, and then we actually tried to get into the building, into the AID headquarters, and they wouldn't allow us in, again, because Elon Musk had taken over this building. So you have a situation where, President Trump has put a billionaire, richest man in the world, in charge of these operations, and they're simply working to install their own political cronies. And at the end of the day, when the president was sworn in, we had the inaugural ceremony here on the Hill, and the folks who were standing right behind President Trump were the billionaire tech titans. I mean, Elon Musk and the others. And so this seems to be, a merger between, the Trump administration and the wealthiest and some of the most powerful people in the country. And I can tell you they're not looking out for the interests of the overwhelming majority of the American people. So this is an ongoing story. Let's keep in touch. And I'm really grateful for the chance to be with you.
We're
Thank
deep.
you, Barbara, our senator, Barbara, that you lead by example, and that's why we like Senator Chris Van Hollen, leading by example. He's out front there protesting.
Yes.
He's not behind a desk. He's out front. That's what we like about our senator, Barbara.
And that's why, we are happy that you come on, because when I saw, frankly, I had no idea 25 million people fly in and out of National Airport every year. I have been following the FAA reauthorization and your stance, but I didn't realize it was 25 million people. Folks, that is the whole nation. So many people from all over every state. So this is a national issue of importance. Thank you for your leadership, for your presence, for everything that you're doing. Cannot wait to work with you to protect our democracy from this oligarchy and all the other attacks. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you, and it's really good to be with you, and let's stay in touch.
All right. Thank you
so much.
All right. Thank you. Right. Bye-bye.
Wow. Well, that is an incredible start to our show today. We are blessed because we have a whole lineup of amazing guests. You're going to just be blown away, because we're going to talk for the rest of this show about DEI, and we're going to talk about Black History Month, and we're going to talk about the Arbery trial. We'll bring you up to date. I am with the family. We just, walked out of the courthouse less than 15, 20 minutes ago. And it is so important for people to know that we're on break, while the judge, lets the jury eat lunch. But we will be back, and there's a lot to update you on. But let's talk with our incredible guest, who I am just so happy to welcome, a new guest. Yes, people, we have a brand new guest who you may have heard years ago, who was on when we were talking about critical race theory and some other issues. But I am so blessed to have Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead with us. She is the new head of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, as we love to say. She's the immediate past president of the National Women's Studies Association, all the women around the country. And she is the current executive director of the Carson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice. She's a professor of communications for African and African American Studies, Loyola University, Maryland. She's also a host with Today with Dr. Kaye. There you go, on WEAA 88.9 FM. She is amazing, one of my favorite people in this nation. Welcome to Igniting Change, Dr. Kaye.
I am so excited. I have been waiting for you to invite me, so I'm glad to be here.
Wow, I gotta have you more on because you are just such a leader and so amazingly. People have no idea how just brilliant you are. I also am happy to welcome to our show a returning guest. And that's none other than the mighty Caitlyn Arnwine. Yes, folks, that's my daughter-in-law. But more importantly, she is the author and creator of the Transformative Justice Coalition's hashtag VRA Black History series. She's a professional poker player. She's done so much. She organizes for women's rights in the poker community. And she is a current consultant and former social media and executive assistant for the Transformative Justice Coalition. And she's a current speaker and former coordinator of public education for the National Coalition for the Homeless. Welcome, Caitlyn. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, listen, you've been working. I mean, those stories are out. We're in the fourth day of Black History Month, and you've been getting out some amazing stories. I also believe that we've been, rejoined again. Oh, he's a regular on our show. We just love him whenever we can get him. We are blessed. I believe that we have been joined by none other than Professor Ernest Quarles. Professor Quarles, are you there with us, sir?
Yes, I am, Barbara. Thank you so much, Barbara and Daryl, for having me. Pleased to be with everybody today.
Well, you're an amazing attorney, and also these issues that are going on in the federal government. I know you have views on those, and why don't we get into the heart of our subject today? This is the fourth day of the amazing, Black History Month. Now, people are talking about they want to celebrate it. They're talking about they want to recognize it. Other people are trying to ban it, prohibit it, act like it's something, horrific, unbelievable. We are in a crazy time in 2025 after everything Carter G. Woodson went through to create Black History Week. Then we took it to Black History Month, and, of course, a lot of us do it all year long. But I like to talk about not just celebrating. I like to talk about practicing Black History Month and practicing Black history. That is not sufficient to just say, names of a couple of Black famous people like the president did and President Trump did in his so-called proclamation, but talking out of both sides of his mouth, because on one hand, proclaiming Black History Month and his favorite Black people, but on the other hand, banning the teaching of Black history at the by the Department of Defense and other agencies. What is going on, folks? So let's start with you, Dr. Kaye. Dr. Whitehead, would you please tell everyone what is DEI? Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for inviting me on the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want to begin by just noting that Black history and the teaching of Black history, I always say it's a muscle that people have to exercise, that if you leave it just to your memory, you will rely on the same people that we've always talked about. You will rely on talking about Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman or President Obama, MLK, when our history is so rich. We've been in this country since 1619, and we have been contributing to the building of the foundation of this country. You need to exercise that muscle by studying, celebrating, uplifting, and practicing how you're going to teach and share Black history 365 or 366, depending upon whether it's a leap year. I also want to mention, it's just kind of three things. That's the first. The second, I want to mention about President Trump's proclamation. Because as the president of ASALH, which is Dr. Carter G. Woodson's organization, he is the one, of course, who launched Negro History Week that became Black History Week that later became Black History Month. 1926 is when he began. It became a month-long celebration in 1976. As the president of ASALH, we talked about the fact that the president of the United States was a little bit concerned about not releasing a proclamation. People got nervous thinking he could cancel Black History Month. Well, we released our own proclamation. As I said last Thursday, he doesn't have to proclaim it, we proclaim it. Black history belongs to us. We don't wait for celebrations from other people. We celebrate ourselves. We don't wait for him or anyone else to see us. We see ourselves. And then the third piece is around the teaching of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which benefits a number of different communities, races, ethnicities, genders, physical and mental abilities. It's not just about what happens in the Black community, although it's part and parcel of that. It builds on the work that was done around affirmative action, around dealing with the American Disabilities Act, around thinking about Women's History Month, around thinking about what's been happening in the LGBTQIA community, thinking about Title IX. All of that falls under that banner, and the work that they have been doing, the intentional work, is to connect DEI only to Black people, to make it a slur for Black people, so that when people are looking for something to attack, whether they're thinking about planes crashing in the air or they're thinking about the LA fires, they simply add DEI in there, and it becomes this kind of hated trope that everything is wrong with this country is because of Black people. And I think part of the work we have to do is to work against that narrative and use the platforms that we have to speak against the lies that are being told about us.
Wow, thank you.
And Professor Quarles is really interesting. When I'm listening to Dr. Whitehead and all the presentation, when I think about what Senator Van Hollen was just talking about how just offensive it is for President Trump to talk DEI as it relates to the air traffic controllers and the accident at Reagan National Airport. Professor Quarles, when you heard those words come from President Trump's mouth, what was your reaction?
Well, I guess I was not surprised. I was just waiting to hear exactly what they were going to be. I think in my mind, I don't see him capable of doing anything else but to try to flip the script, so to speak, to benefit his constituency and people and his cronies. What's ironic, though, about that particular narrative, and I'm not sure if people followed what was happening in those days prior to that accident, and that was, number one, that the system failed. I guess they're still doing investigations into that FAA system, and the fact that they had fired the FAA director. So it's like none of those two things, at least in the news, had really became a story to go up against his comments. Now, of course, the investigations will probably unearth nothing as it relates to that because they control, obviously, the information that flows to the public. But those two facts in and of themselves just struck me just as an indication of how, the narrative is so incredibly controlled.
Mm-hmm. And Caitlyn, I know you've been writing and interweaving a lot of current actions that are happening in the White House with regards to Black history, and I think your most recent story sort of interweaves and goes into some DEI conversation. Is that correct, Caitlyn?